welcome to Daily Dictation. This video is all about the topic of hobbies, specifically looking at sports, and it's for a high intermediate English speaker. This video is aimed to help you practice your English skills. Specifically, we're looking at helping you practice your listening and your writing skills. During this video, you will do that by listening to 5 sentences. After you listen to 5 sentences, you will write them down. They will be repeated 3 times, and you're going to double check the spelling, grammar, capitalization, and punctuation. After you've written down those 5 sentences, I am going to show you the answers. I will tell you some tips and tricks to help you ensure that your spelling is improved. And I am also going to tell you some grammar and explain some grammar in each sentence so you know how to apply that to your own writing. So let's go ahead and get started with daily dictation. Daily dictation, to perfect the skill of writing things in English as you hear them perfectly, it's good to practice every day. So there's new sentences each weekday, new topics each week, and 2 English levels offered in case you find this level to be a little bit too challenging. So instructions. You will need a blank piece of paper and a pencil. 5 sentences will be read, and each sentence will be read 3 times and 1 more time at the end. So you have to write down each sentence exactly how you hear it. So you will use your listening skills to do this. Try your best to apply the correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization as you write each sentence down. On the screen here, you're going to see numbers 1 to 5. Each number represents a different sentence that I will read. We're going to start with sentence number 1. Number 1. Although her agility helped her, it was her precision that allowed her to score the final goal. Although her agility helped her, it was her precision that allowed her to score the final goal. Although her agility helped her, it was her precision that allowed her to score the final goal. Number 2. When the players' equipment was carefully inspected, their technique was evaluated through warm-ups to ensure they were prepared. When the players' equipment was carefully inspected, their technique was evaluated throughout warm-ups to ensure they were prepared. When the players' equipment was carefully inspected, their technique was evaluated throughout warm-ups to ensure they were prepared. Number 3. Because he lacked stamina, he fumbled the ball in the final quarter. Because he lacked stamina, he fumbled the ball in the final quarter. Because he lacked stamina, he fumbled the ball in the final quarter. Number 4. Even though they developed a new strategy for defense, the coach noticed that the team's endurance needed more work. Even though they developed a new strategy for defense, the coach noticed that the team's endurance needed more work. Even though they developed a new strategy for defense, the coach noticed that the team's endurance needed more work. Number 5. Since his natural athleticism and technique made him stand out, he was chosen as team captain. Since his natural athleticism and technique made him stand out, he was chosen as team captain. Since his natural athleticism and technique made him stand out, he was chosen as team captain. Now I will read each sentence one more time, starting with sentence number 1. Although her agility helped her, it was her precision that allowed her to score the final goal. Number 2. When the players' equipment was carefully inspected, their technique was evaluated throughout warm-ups to ensure they were prepared. Number 3. Because he lacked stamina, he fumbled the ball in the final quarter. Number 4. Even though they developed a new strategy for defense, the coach noticed that the team's endurance needed more work. Number 5. Since his natural athleticism and technique made him stand out, he was chosen as team captain. So there are our 5 sentences. Let's get ready to check our answers. All right, so if you found that was just a little bit too fast, I encourage you to listen again, but you can slow down the video by adjusting the playback speed in the settings of the video. If you need to listen to specific sentences again, please check the description for timestamps, and this will help you listen to specific sentence numbers again. However, if you feel like you got everything correct and you're ready to check out the answers, let's go ahead and check them out. We're going to start with number 1. Although her agility helped her, it was her precision that allowed her to score the final goal. So this was the first sentence here. We are clearly starting with a dependent clause. This clause cannot stand alone and be its own sentence because we have a conjunction here. And this conjunction shows us that we require more information. Although what? We are asking ourselves. Although this, what happened? What more is there? We need an independent clause to tell us more. So here is our independent clause. So here, dependent. And here, the next clause, this whole clause, it was her precision that allowed her to score the final goal. That's an independent clause. So because we're starting with the dependent and we're starting with our conjunction, that's why we need a comma here. So after that, we have it was her precision that allowed her to score the final goal. So here we have our subject, it, our form of be, was is in simple past. Her precision is a noun. And so we have this possessive adjective her to show that she is the ownership of that precision. She's the one who has that skill. And this gives us more information. We have a that clause to follow, and the that clause here gives us more information that is pretty essential for this sentence. That allowed her to score the final goal. In other words, without the precision, she would not have been able to do this. So we have a that clause that allowed her to do this. So we do have a verb after the that clause to provide more information. Now you might have found some words difficult to spell, although is a difficult word to spell. So you need to split it up, all, though, and really sound it out, because if you're just memorizing what words look like and spelling them that way, you're going to get the word though mixed up with a couple other words in English. Thought and through look very similar to though. And so if you are memorizing it, then you might accidentally put an R or put a T at the end without thinking. So you have to really sound out the word when you say it, which is difficult because we do have silent letters in here, G and H. So practice this a lot if you're getting it wrong. Another thing that people often do with this word is they'll put 2 L's because they'll think all as in all of the food, for example, where we normally would put 2 L's. But in this case, it's just the beginning of a word. We don't need 2 L's. So that's something to remember there. Agility comes from the word agile. which means that you're able to move around difficulty in a difficult way and quickly, like athletes do. And your body is able to do this with ease. Some people are not agile, like I am not, so I will fall all over the place. I'm very clumsy. But some people can move so fast, so effortlessly, and so easily and effectively in sports that we call them agile. It's very strong and it's good ability to do this. To split it up, you should put agile, e, like this. The most important thing is to keep these first three together because the rest can be sounded out. Litty is exactly how it sounds. But this one's harder because this G kind of sounds like a J sometimes because when we put GI or GE together, it makes the J sound. So that's why it's good to split it up. Precision could also be another hard one. I would do pre-cis-ion, like that. So you're just remembering them in smaller chunks. Let's have a look at the next sentence. When the players' equipment was carefully inspected, their technique was evaluated throughout warm-ups to ensure they were prepared. Okay, here's a few things in this sentence. This one also starts with a dependent clause. It cannot stand by itself. There's missing information. When you're saying the word when, it's showing us that there's more information to come. This conjunction shows us that there's missing information. So we're starting with the conjunction in the same way as we were in sentence number 1. It can't stand by itself, so it's dependent. The other half is independent. Now, in the same way, because we're starting with independent and the independent follows, then we do need the comma. Okay, so the next thing is the word players has an apostrophe here. This is possessive. Possessive is tricky because players is already plural. So when we have a word, a noun, that's plural, like players, and we want to show a possessive, we're not going to say players is. We don't say that because it sounds awkward and it's too difficult to pronounce. And what you need to know about English speakers is we are lazy. We don't want to pronounce too many letters or too many words than we have to. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove that S. We do not need it. We only put one apostrophe after the S because we already have an S here because it is plural. So when something is plural and it's also, we want to show possession or ownership, when we would normally put apostrophe S, when it already ends in S as a plural, we're not going to put that extra S anymore. So if you put it like this, that's incorrect. It's like this. Equipment could be a difficult word. The root word is equip. So I would just split it up into two like this, remembering the QU. A lot of people forget that. Carefully, we have to remember the rule for adverbs, which is adding ly onto the noun. So that's why we have two L's here. Technique is another tricky word. I would split it up into this like tech and then neek. Now, this one is extremely hard because the CH doesn't make a ch sound. It makes a k sound. So if it helps you for spelling, you can say tech, nikwe. That's what I say in my head only when I'm spelling to remember all of the letters, tech, nikwe, because then I can remember all of the letters in the order. However, that's not how we say it, really. That's not how it's pronounced in conversation. It's pronounced technique. But for spelling, tech, nikwe, that really helps. So I do tech, ni, way in my head only for spelling so I can think about all the letters. If I'm talking verbally in regular conversation, I'll just say technique because that's the correct pronunciation. Evaluated throughout. So this is why it's important not to just memorize what a word looks like to spell it, but actually sound it out and understand how all the letters come together to form the word. Because here we have though, here we have through, out. So you need to know how to spell through independently. You know how to spell through and you know how to spell out, make it one word, and that should be easy. If you're trying to memorize it, then you're going to get confused and say, do I add a T here? Or do I not add the T at all? And then you're going to get a wrong spelling there. Let's look at sentence number 3. Because he lacked stamina, he fumbled the ball in the final quarter. This one is shorter, but still same principle. Dependent clause first. Independent clause comes second. And so that's why we need the comma here. Otherwise, most of the words should actually be relatively easy to spell. Stamina might be a new one. However, sound it out slowly as you spell it. It sounds almost the same. Stamina. You can even split it into smaller bits if you want. Stamina. Number 4. Even though they developed a new strategy for defense, the coach noticed that the team's endurance needed more work. Another example that we're starting with the dependent clause first, which is why we have the comma there. And another reason why we need to know the spelling of though, not by memorization, by sounding it out. Because now so far you have though, through, though again. So you need to understand how to apply all these different spellings if you're not getting it correct. You might have spelled defense differently. Sometimes it's spelled with an S. If you spelled it with an S, that is correct. That is okay. It depends on your region. I am located in Canada, so we prefer to spell it with a C, but sometimes people spell it with an S as well. So it just depends on where you are. And here we have apostrophe S to show possession. The endurance belongs to the team. Overall, dependent, independent, the coach is the subject, notice is the verb, and we have that clause after that. That clause, notice that the team's endurance needed more work. You can actually, if you wanted to, you could drop this. If you wrote the sentence without that, it's correct. So what we could say is the coach noticed the team's endurance needed more work. That would be absolutely fine. Let's look at sentence number 5. Since his natural athleticism and technique made him stand out, he was chosen as team captain. Again, we have another dependent clause. This cannot stand by itself because we have the word since, which is a conjunction that tells us that we're missing information. So again, we have a dependent clause to start. Dependent, which is shown by conjunction here. And that's why we have a comma after that clause. Then the independent clause comes second. He was chosen as team captain. Overall, in the second clause, the spelling should be relatively straightforward. Your difficult spelling is these 2 bold words in the first clause. Athleticism comes from athletic or athlete. So split it up. Ath first, let is ism. So split it up into 4 parts. Ath, let, ism. And you can spell technique in the same way over here. So this makes a K sound, but if you're spelling it in your mind, you can say technique to help remember the spelling of it all. Otherwise, another thing is it's hard to remember that QU if you're not saying que in your head because you say qua for QU, but in this case, it sounds like neek, like Neek, for example. So it's hard to spell if you're just sounding it out the way it should be sounded out, technique. So sound it out phonetically, technique to help spelling. If that works for you, you should do that. These bold words are the words that we're focusing on. So this was a little bit of a breakdown of some spelling tips and tricks and some of the grammar principles that we've seen here. Let's have a look at what words you should focus on and practice more of, because we're going to see them again this week. So we have the words agility, stamina, strategy, precision, technique, fumble, equipment, endurance, sportsmanship, athleticism. So we're going to be seeing these words this week. Practice them. Make sure you know how to spell them, especially if you had a difficult time spelling them today. Also, make sure you know how to use them in your own sentences, in your own writing, because if you use these words in a proficiency exam like CELPIP, IELTS, PTE, TOEFL, or something like this, shows that you have a very good range of vocabulary, which is usually a big aspect that determines your score. So continue to practice it, especially if you do play sports as a hobby. The topic of hobbies does come up really often, so it would be really good to know these words. Besides that, we are all finished for today. Thank you so much for watching. Keep on practicing your English. Keep on doing the best you can. And I'll see you next time. Bye.